better for me.
Okay. Because you got to get up and walk around?
No, because I got to take my test and stop thinking about it.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
The quiz is just like sitting in the back of our mind.
Yeah, that's true.
So I like this one.
Okay, so before the projector is ready, I have another announcement to make. And that announcement is that Rubum, who sat in the back corner, told me today that he didn't need to take this class. Therefore, he was not going to take this class. I want somebody from this side to move. My goal in this class is to get you people off of this side. Somebody volunteer.
Go ahead, because you're always back there for them anyway.
There you go. Just got thrown to the background. Yay, there are people over here, and I only have to remember one chair. Thank you very much, Gabe.
Oh God.
That is so not appropriate.
Oh, please. Oh,
I really want to see the whole screen. Don't mind.
okay, that'd be great. Then I can stop around.
And then there's an open seat down at the end of this road too.
Oh,
But I don't think it's gone.
yeah, just for today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's coming.
Okay, so the last of the fungi, we just
Not
didn't
tonight,
quite
no.
finish this
Tonight.
last Thursday, so I want to make sure that I finish it before I forget again. This had to do with fungi that produce or cause intoxication. And I started out this saying intoxication, we typically think of intoxication as meaning alcohol intoxication, but intoxication just means you are ingesting a toxic substance, which alcohol is, but that's not the kind of intoxication fungi cause. So fungi, a number of different fungi produce toxic substances. As a group, they are just referred to as mycotoxins. Well, myco refers to the fact that it's a fungus. Remember, myce's root is fungus. Mycotoxin, this is kind of a generic term for whatever toxin a fungus produces. But there are some very specific ones. So, for example, Amanita phalloides is a type of fungus. These are fleshy fungi, and they are capable of producing mycotoxins that cause severe liver damage. What's dangerous about these guys is that Amanita phalloides looks very much like the little agaricus mushrooms that are sold in Raley's and Safeway. They're little white guys. When they're young, they can be mistaken for edible fungi. People harvest these, they eat them, and they cause such severe liver damage that they require people to have liver transplants, or they just kill them. And the worst part of it is, very often the people that gather the fungi and then prepare them and feed them to their families are parents, and the people that suffer are their children. So the best advice, don't gather wild mushrooms. Particularly if you're not a native of this country and you come to this country, don't gather wild mushrooms. Because you can accidentally pick up Amanita phalloides and kill people with it. Fortunately, while Amanita phalloides is the little white one, the other Amanita that you see very often in pictures are easily recognized. And they're the ones that have the red colored cap with little white spots on it, or they're sometimes bright orange or bright or dark brown. Don't eat those either. Amanita are toxic. Aspergillus flavus, this is a mold-type fungus that produces a very potent carcinogenic toxin. It's called aflatoxin. Well, afla, A is for Aspergillus, FLA is for flavus. So aflatoxin is just short for Aspergillus flavus toxin. This is one of the most potent carcinogens known. So this is really problematic because Aspergillus flavus is a common mold-type fungi. They live in soil. What you see in this image is Aspergillus flavus on the surface of a corn kernel. They do produce, on a colony, they produce conidiospores that are kind of chartreuse colored, so they're kind of a green color. They are potentially noticeable on grain crops, but it's not something that the Food and Drug Administration tests routinely for. And so they are not only on grains, such as corn, but they're also on peanuts. And again, the toxin they produce is a carcinogen. Causes severe liver damage. Another potential toxic fungi if you ingest it is Claviceps purpurea. So when I was introducing Claviceps in the laboratory, I said that these are fungi that parasitize plants. They cause a disease in plants called ergot, and then if animals eat the infected grain, it causes ergotism. But they also produce this substance that is equivalent or can be used to make LSD, which is a hallucinogenic toxin. So there's our image of claviceps, and then we had the little Riker mountain with the grain that had the infected seed. If you were gathering wild grain and you see these grain seeds that are kind of dark and larger than the normal ones, don't eat them. You also shouldn't eat corn smut, although I know some people do. Corn smut is also corn seeds with fungus inside. Another fungus that has been kind of categorized as a toxin producer, and I just read an article that said that apparently the toxin they produce actually causes damage to mitochondria, is Stachybotrys atra. Stachybotrys atra is one of the types of fungi called black mold. These things tend to have a real preference for growing using cellulose as food. Well, cellulose is wood, but also paper products. So locally, if homes are damaged by floodwaters, the wood can be wetted and Stachybotrys can grow on the wood, and sheetrock, what we call gypsum sheetrock, it's wallboard, it's paper on both sides of gypsum. Well, the paper is full of cellulose, and so Stachybotrys can grow on that also. They typically form these black-looking colonies. So here you see a sink, a wall next to a sink. You see the black mold growing on there. If they're growing on a petri plate, they form these colonies that are very dark. Well, so these are supposed to produce a toxin that is not even necessarily ingested. I mean, people aren't going to be chewing on wallboard or licking wallboard, but the toxins are airborne, so they get into the air and they can cause a variety of symptoms: headache, dizziness, and apparently depressed immune system. As I said, what I was reading most recently is they cause damage to mitochondria. So they somehow interfere with mitochondrial reproduction. You can't function without your mitochondria. They're your source of ATP. So that's it. That's all I wanted to do, is get through microtoxins. Thank you, Sunny.